a friend who I periodically see things posted on social media from. He's a doctor fellow that I've known for some years now. And he has a habit of posting some things that make people a little bit uncomfortable. And one of those things he posted recently was something that I think it was Aldous Huxley said. I don't remember the exact words, but the essential idea, as far as I'm concerned, is a lot of people will live in a sort of a fantasy because, quite frankly, reality scares them or upsets them or frustrates them or whatever, and I believe that that's a true thing. Well, today I want to talk on a subject that I've titled A Butterfly Life on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and today is Friday, the 31st of December of 2021. That is New Year's Eve, which of course means tomorrow will be Saturday the 1st of January of 2022, which will make it, of course, New Year's Day. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, the podcast, YouTube, Clout Hub, or BitChute, or for that matter anywhere else you happen to be joining me. Remember, at this point, Rumble is my preferred platform. And again, the subject for today is going to be a butterfly life, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of get into the idea, the notes that kind of go over the idea for what this video is all about. There's this concept. The idea is an individual who dreams he's a bee or a butterfly. Then he begins to consider things and wonders if, in fact, he's a butterfly or a bee, dreaming he's a person. Many folks consider this to be the basis for things like the movie The Matrix. The folks who made that movie can disagree with that idea. I'm fine with that, and won't try to speak for them. The point, though, is this. There are a bunch of folks out there who have concluded there might be some sort of Matrix-like scenario in play on planet Earth. That it's, that it's true, there's some level of extreme activity making people believe they live in a world they're more comfortable with than the one that actually exists. That's what they're believing, right? That's what they're assuming. Where I don't believe my body is in a pod somewhere plugged into a life support system, some computer-based life support system, I do believe there are a bunch of people out there being fed propaganda who believe what they're told. In fact, I consider that for some part of my life, I was among them. I'm not someone who suggests going off wild-eyed over this reality. Instead, my perspective is a simple one. I largely live by my father's viewpoint on life. I've said it before, but will repeat it now. His view of life was, question everything. That's what he said. He wasn't saying, and I'm not either, that you'll always find revolutionary or contrary things as a result of being unwilling to accept things at face value. His interest was in understanding what's real. And like me, I don't think like him. I don't think it's likely, like me, I don't think it's And like me, I don't think it's likely he believed he'd find so very many ways in which we're lied to and deceived in order to elicit desired responses. I want to be clear. A lot of life is exactly as it seems, precisely what we're sold or experience. That said, so long as you don't allow the idea to paralyze you, there's an awful lot to be said for my dad's viewpoint. The first most important thing one ought to do, know what is and is not reality. If you just listen to others' take on that, perhaps you're destined to live a butterfly life. Now I'm going to go ahead and get on with this. Look, I used to, let's be fair. Up until very recently, in fact, it was very hard not to live in a reality where you listen to the mainstream news, you read the mainstream newspapers, you had no other real good way to get your information. And then not too long ago, by a lot of people's reckoning, a long time ago, 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago, but I think really probably closer to 30 years for most of it, was only the really sort of far-fetched sounding things that were 40 years ago. people began to get different messages out. And I think that a lot of people still believe that some of those messages, well, I think it's true, even that some of those messages are far-fetched and incorrect and improper and so forth. But the thing that I would say to you is this. Your job, if job you have, and you do, is to figure out what's real. Am I saying that I've got a perfect handle on everything that's real and everything that's not? Actually, no, I'm not. I believe it's very likely that there are some things that I still count among, the things I count real and true, I consider real and true, that just aren't. And that at some point it's going to come out that the things that I consider real, believable, true, seemingly what is, those things are not what's going on. Again, am I in a pod somewhere in a life support system supported by some computer? No, I don't believe that's happening. Is it possible? I suppose it is, but I really don't think so, right? My life is not just difficult enough, but off-kilter enough by the majority of society that either that computer is exceptionally good at showing me things that I need to see in order to believe I'm not in that pod somewhere, or it's not what's going on. Now, that's still, as I say, that doesn't mean that I still haven't A, had, and B, don't have now beliefs that are probably broken when compared with reality. That's almost certainly a truth. I've come to more and more believe that certain people who folks consider out there are probably more correct in what they say than lots of people are willing to accept or allow. Tim Pool and his crowd look to a lot of people like they're almost conspiracy theorists, some of them, and my answer to that is some of what they say may not be true, but I have to tell you something. I believe that Tim sees that to be the case. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but he's not willing to just dump the idea because people tell him what he says is not true. And that's true for the folks that he hangs out with as well. Am I saying everything they say is absolutely correct? Am I saying Alex Jones is 100% on the mark? No, but I will point something out. I will point out that a lot of things people used to say Alex Jones was a conspiracy theorist for believing have come to be at least partially true. And again, does that mean everything he's saying is going to be right? Does that mean you should believe everything he says, or even for that matter that Tim Pool does, or anybody on the right does, or anybody on the left does, or quite frankly anybody in the center? Does it mean you just ought to believe them at face value, take them at face value and believe what they say? No, that's not what it means at all. If you honestly think that you should not be questioning everything, you and I are going to disagree. We're just going to disagree. Can you continue to do what it is that you've done to this point in time? Yeah, you can do that. You can do that. Does that mean that I'm going to suddenly magically agree with what it is that you say? No, it doesn't mean that at all. And in fact, like I say, you need to understand something. I used to be one of you, and I didn't go crazy, and I will admit that there was a period where I kind of lost not touch with reality, but I lost centering for myself, right? That centering is pretty much mostly back. I'm not saying I'm perfectly there. I don't think anybody makes it perfectly there, or very few people, if anybody. But for the most part, I've come pretty much back to center. But at the same time, that does not mean I accept what the average person counts reality to be exactly that. It's just not the case. I believe that there are a lot of people out there living, quote, butterfly or bee lives, right? They're living in a place where they're a person who dreams they're a butterfly or a bee, who thinks about it and realizes they might be a butterfly or a bee dreaming they're a person, and they get lost in that idea. And I think instead what you have to do is concentrate on what is real, what is right, and what is true, and recognize that if you don't question everything, you're probably gonna miss that. All right. I need to go ahead and wrap up. I'm at the end of my time. It's amazing how fast it flies by these days. But anyway, it is done, so let me go ahead and wrap up. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Friday, the 31st of December of 2021, working towards that weekend, into the day today being the beginning of the Sabbath for those who partake of that particular time. Tomorrow then will be Saturday, the 1st of January of 2022, the beginning of the new year, and it will be the end of the Sabbath at sundown on that day. Thank you for everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, on BitChute, and on CloutHub, or anywhere else that you happen to be joining me. Remember that Rumble is my preferred platform. You can give me you can hit the boxing glove for a Rumble on Rumble for me. You can hit the plus on Rumble to say that my content is something that you enjoyed or thought was worth your time. You can hit the minus to say the inverse is true. You on any platform where you have the ability to give me a dislike or like of some sort, whether it's the thumbs up and thumbs down of YouTube, you of course can do that as well. So that includes BitChute and CloutHub as well, if you happen to be looking at me there. You can comment on any platform where I put my content, and comments are possible. I will do my best to pay attention to your comments and act accordingly. It'll certainly be to look at it and to see what you're saying and to decide if it's worth my time and effort. Maybe to respond or reply to what it is that you've said if I feel that that's an appropriate thing. Today's subject has been a butterfly life, and tomorrow we're going to talk about who goes where, and this is with regard to who goes to heaven and who goes to hell and who decides, basically. We'll talk more on that tomorrow, as I say. Hope you're having a good day today. Hope everything is going well for you. I hope your New Year's Eve is going well. If it's not, I pray that things will get better for you in the course of time. Thank you for coming along today, and hopefully we will see you again on Saturdays. That is New Year's Day's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Friday, the 31st of December of 2021, New Year's Eve. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that, and you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.